Alrighty folks, so in this video I'm going to be showing you how to use the wave geometry linker using wave mode. Now you do need a special license for this, so you're going to find out if you have a license as soon as you try to activate it. If it activates, then that means you have a license. If you get a license there, then you don't have a license. So what exactly is wave mode even for? Wave mode is the idea that you take a part and then you share it with other parts associatively, independent of its assembly position. So for example, I have this light box that I created, and I find myself using this part here, the enclosure, multiple times, but I want to make some changes to it here and there. You know, maybe the one that's going to go on another box needs to have certain engraving, or maybe it's going to be rounded. Overall, I want to maintain the associativity of this box with its children, but I want to have the ability to edit the children as much as I can. In other words, the parent, which in this case is going to be this light box here that I'm highlighting for you, always controls the child, but never the other way around. Now, if you're already familiar with Wave Geometry Linker, then you know that in order to create a Wave Geometry Link, you usually have to make an assembly. You have to add this to the assembly and then use Wave Geometry Linker. But the problem with that is that you're then making all of these empty assembly part numbers and for absolutely no reason. So let's see how Wave Mode would work. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here into my assembly navigator, and I'm going to right click on descriptive part name, and I'm going to turn on wave mode. Now you see I already have a check mark next to that, so I'm already in the clear. So once you activate it, you can select the item that you want to share with other parts. In this case, I'm going to say that this enclosure is of interest. And I'm going to go ahead and open it in a new window. You don't have to, but I'm just doing it to show you that this is independent here. Once you have it open in a separate window, you can come over here to the enclosure, as I'm calling it, right click on it, and then you're going to see one here that says wave. You can now go to wave, and then you can go over to copy geometry to part. Now, I don't have a part created yet, so let me make one very quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and make an empty part file in metric here. And as you can see, I just called it Model 1. I didn't rename it, but it's essentially an empty part. It has absolutely nothing in it. If I go to the part navigator, there's nothing in there. But what I want to do now is I want to share this body. I can share anything, really. It doesn't matter what it is. I can share curves, sketches, whatever. But I want to share the whole body with Model 1 over here. So going to the assembly navigator now, you can right-click on enclosure there, go to wave, and then hit copy geometry to part. Now, this is going to tell you that you are creating an associative link between features, but the assembly position is independent. Now, that makes sense because we don't have an assembly here. We're just sharing part to part. That's all we're dealing with here. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK on this. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to copy this over to Model 1, like so. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on that. And now you can see that it says to select what you want to copy over to Model 1. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and say that I want to do a solid body here. And I'm going to go ahead and select this solid body because this is what I want to copy over. Once I select the solid body there, I can go ahead and hit OK. Now, at first, it seems like nothing has really happened, but if you go to Model 1 now, you should see that there is an associative copy of this body in Model 1, just like so. Now, you need to understand that this parent, which is enclosure.prt here, controls the child 100% in terms of features. So if I add, say, a fillet to this, watch what happens. If I come over here to edge blend and I blend this guy, let's say, 1 inch. Okay, that's too much. Let's go maybe 0.25. You can see that if I go over to the child part, then it also received that change. And that is how the wave linking process works. Everything is maintained. If you ever want to change the child, then you simply go to the parent part, which in this case is enclosure.prt, and you change it. But what about the child? Is there anything that we could do with the child? Well, yes, absolutely. Remember, the parent controls the child, but never the other way around. If I come over here and I try to blend this guy here, which of course is the child, it's Model 1, I can go ahead and blend it. but it doesn't affect the parent. As far as the parent is concerned, nothing has happened. It's exactly the same. If I go back to the parent here, you can see that it is exactly the same. So it is a one-way street. You cannot do anything to the child that will force it to change in the parent. At that point, you're going to create a circular loop, and you're flirting with the devil. Now, if you look over here in the child part, which in this case is model 1.prt, you can see that I have this guy here, linked body number 5, which of course is the body that is talking to the parent. If I double click on linked body number 5, you can see that it tells me, hey, here is the parent part, in this case it's enclosure, and it is up to date. It's important to note that you need to have both of these open if you want the child to update. The child will not update if the parent is not open. Now, if you are tired of having this be associative, let's say that you want it to be its own independent item, then you have two options. You can go to the linked body again and simply go to settings and turn off associative. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to convert it to a non-parametric body. In other words, the child no longer talks to the parent. Now, there is one advantage of doing it this way, and the advantage, of course, is that you can always come back and link it later. The other option that you have, which is quite popular, is to simply do what I like to call a nuke. You nuke it. So if you come over here to the search option, you can go ahead and say remove parameters. And then you can click on the child body here. In this case, it is in model 1.prt. And if you hit OK, it's going to tell you, hey, you're going to remove all the parameters. And if you say yes, then it is its own independent body now. Of course, at this point, I can use synchronous modeling to start removing certain things like so. And of course, if I change the parent, then nothing happens to the child. It is exactly the same. Now, how does this differ from, say, an assembly where you have to create an assembly, add the parent part, add a child part, and then use wave linking? Well, I think it's pretty clear. With the assembly method, the assembly wave linking process controls two things. It controls assembly position and body features. But with wave mode, you only control features, which means since this is the child part, let me go back to its linked state here. You can see I just did a Control Z there. But if I'm in the linked body here, I can hit Control T and I can start moving this around like so, right? I can move all of these items as I see fit. I might want to change that to associative, but you can see that the child body has moved. But if I go to the parent here, it's still with respect to the coordinate system at the center. So that is the main advantage that you get with wave mode. Now you can use wave mode to keep feeding this to other things. For example, if I have a new part file, let's call it model 3 or model 2 it looks like, I can then come over here and do the same thing. Wave, copy geometry to part, and then I can choose model 2. Of course, I'll pick the whole body again, and you can see that now this same exact body is in model number 2. Now I have two children parts, which in this case is model 2 and model 1, that are being controlled by enclosure.prt. I hope that helps clear up some of the wave linking items, and please let me know if you have any questions.